Hello, everybody. Welcome back again to the Live Your Dreams podcast. I'm your host, Joe Gawalis, and today we have on a truly inspiring guest, Bruce James Bales, the cinematographer behind A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, a documentary that premiered on Amazon Prime. Now, Bruce cinematography plays a crucial role in shaping the film's gripping narrative. Through a blend of dynamic B-roll and immersive reenactments and intimate interview moments, he brings a complex story to life in ways that are visually stunning and deeply complex. Today, we're going to get into Bruce's creative process, his approach to visual storytelling, the movie, and his journey into the arts. Bruce, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I have to tell you, man, cinematographers are so important to the craft of filmmaking. Now, anybody who's in the arts knows the powerful message and what a cinematographer does and how much they impact the film. I feel sometimes that the regular people maybe watching don't have a full understanding of the grasp of lighting and creating the feel and everything that a cinematographer actually does. A lot of people may just think it's the camera operator. It's so much more than just that.
Yeah, it's really an all-encompassing job. You're really involved with a project from the start to the finish. You're working with a director before you even get to set, which is kind of where most people think movies start, is like the filming of them. But there's so much work that's done beforehand. Sometimes your prep period is even longer than your production period. So, cinematographers are tasked with not only working with the director to craft the image, but other departments as well, lighting and grip department, production design, even wardrobe. We're really, one of the artists on set that gets to help craft a color palette of the film, which then leads you to mood and tone and all these other things that, if we do our jobs correctly, you really don't notice it. And I think that's one reason why not a lot of people understand that part of the process, is because, like, if we do our jobs, you're not even gonna notice how you feel. Like, you're just gonna feel it and walk away from the screen or the theater feeling that way and talking to your friends about it on the sidewalk afterwards, and, that's the ultimate goal as a cinematographer, is to kind of disappear into the work. So I understand why people don't really understand it, but I mean, sometimes we'll spend 6 months talking about a project before I even press record on a camera. So I think there's so much more to it, and a lot of it comes down to just having conversations with the different departments about how to achieve that visual image and that look that you're going for. But when you get to that point, it's a collaborative environment of so many different talented people and artists. So you have to communicate well, and you have to be a good communicator, which is something that I think sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. Is It's not just about your vision; it's about all these other people that are helping you to achieve your vision, or getting their input in and making your vision even greater.
Bruce, I don't think it could be any better said than the way you just did it, literally from start to finish, about even from how the audience shouldn't notice it at the beginning. I have to say I agree with you so much because if you take somebody and then put them in a movie, have them watch a film with bad cinematography and they will notice it. I guarantee you that
Mhm.
immediately they will notice what's going on there. So I love that. And I love that you stated that it's a collaborative process and you're involved with so many different departments. You truly are like an artist. So you have to understand the nuances in creating the colorscape and the mood and the tone, the lighting. You have to understand all of that to create the visual, vision of the director and bring it to life. For yourself, this is such a fascinating field to get involved with. Again, any form of the arts, filmmaking, but specifically you pick cinematography to, and that's your career, that's your life, that's your passion. I'd love to hear, take me back to a young Bruce, kind of what got you into this whole world of cinematography. I'd love to hear your journey from when you were just young and you kind of were bit by that bug that said, I want to do this for my life.
Yeah, I always say that I didn't choose cinematography. Cinematography chose me because I kind of grew up with a camera in my hand, but didn't really realize that that was going to be a vocation
Mm.
later in life. I didn't really realize that the arts were, a formidable profession,
Yep.
to be completely honest. So when I started, it was with a VHS camera, high eight camera, really, low tech, sort of family cameras, either my friends' families or my families. I was fascinated by home movies as a kid. I was fascinated by this idea of storytelling, like from a distance. Like, just a side note, my sister met her now husband, and she lived in Arizona, and he wanted to introduce himself to us. So he made a video called "Hi Jack."
Huh.
Jack was his name, and he sent it to us. And I was like a kid, and I was just like blown away by this. Like, I could get to know this guy who I'd never met, who lived in Arizona, and he made this tape, and it was like a movie. It was like a documentary about him introducing himself. And I always kind of say that was like one of the hooking points that I didn't really realize until much later. But
Sure, sure.
from there, it went on to learning video editing on a computer and making funny videos with my friends. And then it turned into skate videos. And I was
Yeah.
that kid who skated, rollerbladed, but I also did the filming and the editing because I'd already learned Vegas video at that time.
Oh, sure, yeah, Vegas, yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, I love Vegas actually.
You never hear that anymore, man. It's great to
Yeah.
hear a little Tony Vegas. Yeah, good for
Oh
that.
yeah, I loved it, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then I really transitioned to skate videos, and then in high school, I got the chance to do some 35 millimeter still photography in the darkroom,
Yeah.
and that was another moment where I like when you put that paper down in the developer, you see an image appear, and you get to look at the film. And I was just like hooked. It was so tactile, and I love that tactile feel of working in the dark room and the smells and everything. But it was really all these things that were leading to me back to the image, to like image making, right? And then I went to college for English literature because I once again like I went to college because like that's what you do, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I went to college in 2004, and like what you did is you got into college and you
Oh,
went to
yeah, no,
college.
no, yep,
Like
yep, yep.
it didn't matter if you knew what you wanted to do. And I started as a business major and then switched to English literature because I love literature, I love storytelling. And the whole time, was doing film stuff, working on 35 millimeter film projects at college with my friend Barry, who went on to USC. Um, doing some music videos on the side, internship for music videos, but all the while not really realizing still that it could be a profession. So I went on to grad school, got a master's in education because I wanted to teach. Once again, skills that I didn't think were going to come in handy for film, but both of them, literature and education, do. Um, but then, in 2008, graduated and was trying to, or excuse me, grad school is 2011 and really struggled to find a job. Applied for a couple hundred jobs, had like two interviews, and then basically ended back up at my mom's house and was like, what am I going to do? Is working at restaurants and I was like, what skills do I have? And really thought about it. I was like, I know how to make videos and I know how to edit.
Yeah.
So I sent like 300 messages on Facebook to brands or bands, musicians, and the rest is history. And just started down a music video path and then documentaries, corporate videos, whatever I could get my hands on. And then eventually turned my sights to more documentary, commercial, and narrative focused. And I'd say the last hooking point for me was like when I made my first like narrative film.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Start that was it. I was just like, okay, this is the culmination of everything I've done in my life. And that's why I say cinematography chose me is because it just like everything just kind of clicked. And I've been full-time freelance for the last 6 years
Oh, good.
as a working filmmaker, mainly in the camera department, sometimes grip and electric, taking jobs where I can. But for the last 3 years, I've been full-time, cam op, cinematographer, DP, the occasional gaffing or first AC position, but always in the lighting or camera department. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So
Now
yeah.
that's incredible, really. Congratulations to that because what an accomplishment to be able to be full-time freelance. That is for those listeners that are outside of our business, people have to understand that is a huge accomplishment. It says so much about you that you're making your living as a freelancer in the departments you want to be in. Such a hard task to do. And I love your story because I went to college. I'm a year older than you, I guess. I went to college in '03. I started and I actually studied filmmaking. So with you making those films, it was such an odd time because people don't realize YouTube wasn't even a thing yet. Social media was just getting off the ground. So I love that you were an early adapter to like Facebook and social media and reached out to some of these people to try to get music video gigs. You were way ahead of the curve because that was still kind of a new thing in that time period. It really, 11, maybe if you got a grad school, but especially in that '08, '09 area, social media was at like the budding beginning of what was actually happening. It wasn't a place people really collaborated too often.
Yeah, well, I'm fascinated by, communication and different forms of communication and leveraging specifically social media as a free, service. I've always
Yeah.
been a proponent of it. I know it comes with its own things, its own annoyances, its own things, but really like I try to use it in a way where I post what I need to post and I turn it off. And if people want to have a conversation from there, then cool. I'm ready to have that conversation. And I think it's cool that I can have that conversation with people all around the world. And I
Yeah.
think we lose sight of that a little bit, that it is a great tool, when used properly and correctly. And I don't know, it kind of seemed like a no brainer. It was like, oh, this free service, yeah, let's use it.
No, he's when you say it like that, it is like a no-brainer, right? It kinda is, but
Hmm.
so I love it, right? You're getting into the music video world, you do some corporate work, a lot of people are doing that, and then you get to start really doing your first narratives. I love to feel, hear that journey because so many of the listeners here are coming from that corporate world. They do that kind of work as videographers, and a lot of people wanna become a cinematographer and get involved with that narrative style of filmmaking. That must have been a really cool and incredible experience, taking that first leap and saying, "Alright, now I'm making a narrative feature."
Yeah, I think for me, there was a point, when I had quit my last job. I was a Zamboni driver at an ice arena here. I
Wow.
also play hockey, so it's kind of a cool job. I actually really enjoyed it, but
Cool, yeah.
I had a lot of time in between resurfacing the ice. Like, you wouldn't work for 30 minutes, so you could sit in the office and do whatever you want. So I was reading a lot of film books and, watching a lot of films on my laptop, drinking coffee in the cold Zamboni room. Um, and I just had an epiphany that, like, wasn't something that it was going to come easy. It wasn't going to come quick. So I was just like thinking. I started thinking about my life in terms of 10 years spurts instead of like a month or 6 months or a year. And I was like, okay, what happens if I dedicate 10 years of my life to like making narrative films? So
Hmm.
started with the Des Moines 48-hour film festival, met more like-minded people doing that. And just like, even on the corporate commercial gigs I would I would like meet people on those, and I would
Sure.
just always get people's phone numbers. If I could gauge any interest in narrative filmmaking, it was like, okay, cool, I need to remember you.
Yeah,
And I,
yeah.
I remember early on in my career meeting one of my like prime collaborators, Marissa Vaughn, who's a director based in Los Angeles, and she was living in Iowa at the time, and where I'm from, and we just like immediately, connected, and we kind of I was really fortunate to meet her because then I knew I had someone at my equal level that was trying to learn and make narrative films. And we made our first like real narrative film together called Knee High, which we have now turned into a feature length film that was released last year.
Oh, great.
So we've really gone that journey together. But in order to like really make the jump to narrative, I just started finding like-minded people
Mm.
that wanted to make movies on the weekends, and we tried to make movies for nothing. We called in all the favors we could. We started in our backyard. We tried to tell stories that were accessible to us, with locations and people that were accessible to us. So really, we kind of took that DIY mentality to heart. That Robert Rodriguez sort of
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
approach
yeah,
to just
yeah.
to getting it done, and I think of the Duplass brothers and people like that that really send this message of like, hey, if you got a good story, like, it doesn't have to cost tens of thousands of dollars if you're
Yeah.
smart about it. So luckily, I've been just surrounded by people here. I think one thing we have is we have a lot of time and we have a lot of space here, so
Mm.
it enables us to be creative. There's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of history of filmmaking and specifically writing in Iowa that most people don't realize. I mean,
Sure.
two really great cinematographers are from Iowa. The guy that did Jaws, Bill Butler. Like, I mean, he went to the University of Iowa. Thomas Ackerman went to the
Yeah, yeah,
University of
yeah.
Iowa. He's an ASC member who actually did Jumanji and
There you
George's
go. Yep.
Jungle and Anchorman, and all movies people love.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and we have the great, one of the greatest writing programs in the nation, if not the world, at the Iowa Writers Workshop. So there's a
Sure.
history of storytelling here that's rich and deep, and the oral tradition is still very much alive here. We talk to each other, we tell stories. So really, like, meeting the right like-minded people and being in the right environment at the right time has kind of made me to leap into narrative. But a lot of it is also just work. I think people that don't they want to think about things in a glamorous sense, and it's not always glamour. It's like, how do you achieve your goals? You have to have a regimented sort of mindset. Sometimes you have to do those extra hours. You got to work on the weekends. You got to work on holidays, and the work is study. It's reading. It's watching films. It's reading stories. It's networking with other people. So it really is kind of nonstop. And I think a lot of people think that there's a formula for it, and there's not. You have to figure out what works for you and how you grow. So really, it's just been, you know an intuitive process. You trying to pay attention to like what works for me and what doesn't work for me, who I jive with, who I don't jive with, and kind of, when I find those people, just go full force into storytelling with them.
That's so well said, Bruce. Everything, literally. I mean, I think that's fantastic advice. People really do need to get out there. It's so important. I love that you said that is not all glamorous. So many young artists think they're going to get into the business and immediately be on Hollywood sets and be doing whatever they feel like they're going to be doing and achieve this kind of fame or whatever in their mind. It is a lot of work. And like you said, you're always doing this craft. You're always studying. You're always learning. I'm glad you said that you're a student of the craft for your entire life. It's not just a flash in the pan or something you do during the 9 to 5 hours. It becomes your essence as a part.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a little obsessed with it. I think there's a healthy level of obsession as an artist, right?
Yeah.
And finding that balance. And I think also one thing that our society is actually doing really great right now is reminding people to be balanced. I think that health,
Yeah. Yeah.
wellness, mental wellness is like a thing now.
It is. Yeah.
People are talking about it. And I think that's the balance you have to find, right? Is like, you know, how much can you be obsessed with something without doing harm to yourself, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And like, because I do think about it all the time, and I have to turn it off sometimes when I'm like at coffee with a friend, and I'm just like staring at them and how the light's hitting their face, and I'm like, I'm not paying attention to a word you say, and I'm just thinking about how beautiful this light is and how I would replicate it. And I have to kind of check myself in those moments, but really, it's I love it, and you have to love it, and uh it's just like loving yourself, it's you forgive yourself 1,000 times,
Yeah.
a million times throughout your life. And I think as a creative you have to be willing to learn and forgive yourself too, and understand when it's a learning experience, and then also pat yourself on the back when you did a good job, not be afraid to be like, what, take pride in that work and take pride in your journey.
That's fantastic. No, you're absolutely right. It's not about being arrogant. It's taking pride in the work that you did and
Mhm.
actually saying congratulations. I think as artists, people don't do that enough. They're always there to be negative for themselves and kind of come down on themselves. But I think you're right. You have to pat yourself on the back. I think, not an arrogant way, but say, nice job. You did the work and you put the time in. But what's interesting to me is you're where you are in your life, in your age, you came from a very unique time period, right? Like you said, you studied 30, you were shooting on film. I'm sure you did a lot with digital in the early 2000s where things were not really there yet. It wasn't like these new modern cameras like Reds and Black Magics and things that actually look good. These were like, 3 chip cameras with the old Canons and Panasonics that didn't have that look that looked like a filmic quality. How have you seen it now as a cinematographer with you've kind of came from and knew an older guard, but you're still part of this, younger generation where now they're more like social media shooters. Are you seeing cinematography? This is an opinion question. Like, where do you see it being in 5 to 10 years? But the kind of advent and the huge explosion of social media, where so many projects are now going straight to Instagram reels and shorts and TikTok, where it's a different type of filmmaking. Are you still seeing with cinematography being something like a pure art form in 5 to 10 years from now or going the way of these new social media influencers?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions of our time, right? Is
Yeah.
I think we're hanging in a transitional period. We're hanging in the balance a little bit of like, which way are we going? For me personally, all I can say is that I'm really, really happy that I am the age I am, that I was born when I was. I was enough into analog
Mhm. Yeah.
as a kid that I really value those things. I value celluloid. I value film. I value the dark room. I value more traditional storytelling. But I also think because I was born on that sort of divide, that digital divide, becoming like a digital native as opposed to like a digital nomad, growing up with the first computers, playing
Mhm.
Oregon Trail,
Yeah,
learning
yeah.
keyboarding. The computers are a part of my life. Technology part is a part of my life. And I think it's up to us to once again find the balance of that technology and find the balance of like what works for us. I think as a cinematographer, we're in the golden age of technology.
Yeah.
But I think there and this is, I'm gonna tread lightly because I don't wanna offend anybody,
No, no, of course not. Yeah. Yep,
step
yep.
on toes here, but,
Yep.
like, I think we do need to check ourselves as cinematographers right now as far as, like, what we're serving.
Mm.
Are we serving the story? Are we serving the characters? Are we serving the scene? Are we serving ourselves? I think that I've seen some things that seem to be more ego driven than story driven, and I think that's a dangerous path to go on. I think that's a path that makes a story about one person's perspective instead of this sort of universal specificity,
Yeah.
universal specifics that is what film is. Like when you make a good film, it's both universal and highly specific.
Yeah.
That's why people of all walks can feel very personal to it. And I think cinematography should adapt that same mindset and shouldn't be from the mind of the DP. And I think this is a bigger philosophical issue, really, is like people think sometimes when I make a decision, it's like what I want. And the best thing I could do on set is to make a decision based on the story and what it tells me it needs to be. And I know that's a really lofty, sort of sublime way of thinking, but that's what it is. It's poetic. It's the story speaks through us as artists. The story should speak through us as artists. And there's nothing wrong with the Instagram DPs and the people that are shooting for vertical and the reels.
Sure.
I think this is all different storytelling. And I honestly, I might catch some heat from some old school DPs, but like I think vertical's cool, man.
It is cool. There's a lot of good series coming out now. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's cool. I think a vertical image, you can craft it differently. You can think about it way differently. I think it's cool. And I think that if people are watching, more shorts on Instagram or TikTok, I think that's an okay thing. I think it's up to everybody personally to like figure out how they want to deal with social media and the greater, you know, society. That's not my problem to think about, right? What I'm thinking about is storytelling and how to tell stories that that people identify with. And however that's done, I'm not here to tell people how to do it. I think the call I would put out there is just like, let's make sure we're doing things for the right reasons, and let's make sure that we're staying true to what we're there to be true to.
So well said. Again, Bruce, I have to compliment you because you said at the beginning, a cinematographer's job is being a good communicator, and that was so well communicated. Great way to answer that, really, which again, you're seeing it from all the different perspectives, where like you even said some of the older school cinematographers may not be seeing the new way, but because of the age range you fall in, seeing both worlds and being on that forefront of technology, you still see the craft and the artistry that's going on with these verticals that are happening now, and there still is. These vertical DPs are getting some beautiful shots out there. That doesn't make them, less of a creator. I think they're seeing it from a different perspective and creating some really fantastic images.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and yeah, I just don't think you should take away from anybody that's
yeah,
doing what they're doing, man, doing their thing. I'm not here to tell people not to do their thing. I want to be a champion of people and a champion of the arts, and um, I think it's exciting that we're in a transitional period. I think it's exciting that we get to see all these things changing. I think it's exciting that we get to have maybe a little bit of say in like what we like and what our tastes are. I mean, it's cool being an artist because you get to be a tastemaker a little bit. You
sure.
put things out there, and who knows? Some people have a real impact on society. You think about some of the greatest films of all time. Like people talk about those on the daily basis. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you can have a real effect on someone, and I don't think we should be gatekeeping. I think we should be supporting people and keeping open minds. And what I really wanted to say is that as a cinematographer, perspective is everything. Like we are tasked with inhabiting other perspectives.
Mm,
That's our job. Our job is to say, hey, this character, what perspective do we show them from? And I just had a great conversation with a friend that went to the master's program at NYU, and
okay,
the
sure.
cinematography professor asked her, what would your movie look like if the protagonist filmed it? And I love that
Huh.
because it's all about perspective. And like that's why like a DP can inhabit, dozens of different perspectives on any set. And that if that translates to our worldview, then like we should be able to look at all these people doing things differently and be like, oh, that's awesome. That's an interesting perspective. And really, that's what I'm searching for in my artistic journey is like looking at other perspectives because that's how you learn. That's how we learn. That's why when you travel, you're put into a different perspective. And people talk about travel helping people like combat prejudice. There's that famous quote. I think it's Mark
Yeah.
Twain, and and it's really true because you're learning a different perspective. You're learning how other people live. You're seeing it for yourself. And movies can do that, but you don't even have to leave your hometown.
Oh man, absolutely, Bruce. What you're saying makes so much sense. It's there, and again, it's you are creating from a perspective so well put. Now, I have to say, now I'm so excited for our people to learn more and our listeners to learn more about you because you are a fascinating individual, a cinematographer, a love of the arts, the craft, storytelling, communication. Really, I'm so glad you got to come on the show because you're giving such great information. If our fans are out there and they want to learn more about you, social medias, websites, where can people learn more about Bruce and the journey you're on?
Yeah, I'm really active on Instagram.
Okay.
That's at Bruce James Bales, just my full name.
Sure.
And then my website is
Okay.
brucejbales.com. So Bruce and then the middle initial for James J Bales.com. Those are probably the two best ways to keep up with my work. But I'm like really open to having conversations. I think because of my educational background, like I'm happy to like talk and share what the little I know anytime. So I try to keep an open dialogue on both, that those media outlets, but also email is just my full name, Bruce
Okay.
James Bales at gmail.com. Would happily answer any other questions or do any follow-ups that way too.
So I'm sure our listeners are going to love that because there's a lot of information that can be learned here. But isn't it? I mean, you have to think about that when you talk about young, up and coming, aspiring cinematographers or filmmakers. When you talk about the technology, isn't it incredible now that these young filmmakers can go out there and get like a pocket 4K from Blackmagic for under $1,000 nowadays and create these images that are like almost Alexa quality, filmic quality for that price as a storyteller. I mean, look at the tools. And like you said, we're in this new transition period. It's incredible what could be created for a fraction of a cost nowadays.
The playing field is the most level it's ever been.
Yeah.
When you look at it from that perspective, I mean, everybody has a phone. There's great
Mhm.
films created with an iPhone.
Sure. Yeah.
You don't even need to buy a camera. Um, I think that because of that, I mean, I really think that most people are like they're documenting their lives, right, with their
So,
phones all the time.
yes.
Which is, I think there's so much like negativity surrounding that, like that's a bad thing. And once again, you're gonna hear me. Maybe the topic of conversation today will be balance, but I do think there's a balance of
Yeah.
like not letting your phone take over your life, of course. But like, I think it is amazing that everybody has the ability to document their lives. It was something that can fit in their pocket, both video and still.
Yeah.
So the playing field being leveled, I can learn a lot from a lot of different people. I can look at their perspectives just on Instagram and be like inspired by the phone photos they take. And I am. I
Yeah.
have a lot of friends that only take photos on their iPhone, and I'm very impressed with what they do. I have a friend, Phil Austin, shout out Phil in Santa Rosa, California. They're like, anytime I see a phone photo from him, I'm just like, dude, you're really good at this. I know that's stupid
Right.
to
Yeah.
say, but like, there's all these people creating images and memories. More importantly,
Sure.
going back to my like digital, nomad versus digital native. One
Yep.
thing I was obsessed with as a kid was our photo albums. I loved photo
Sure.
albums.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's great that we can still have those. I would love for more people to get back to tactile, printed out photos too.
Sure.
But like everybody has a photo album in their pocket. And I think that's really cool. And I think that there's a lot of people using those tools for the right reasons and doing really great work with those tools. And on a bigger level above the phones, I think, you know, when you level the playing field for people, we're opening up so many more stories that we get access to.
Oh yeah.
And that can't be anything but a good thing. That can't I think of some stuff I've seen on YouTube. There's like all these Nigerian filmmakers that are like
Yeah.
amazing
Oh
at
yeah.
special effects. And I'm just like, I'm glad I saw that. That
Of
was super
course. Yeah.
inspiring,
Are you kidding me? Yeah.
you
So
know?
many good inspirational filmmakers out there. Absolutely right.
Yeah. So it's just I think it's a really great thing and I'm happy to see it. And especially because, there are film is inherently has a gatekeeping quality to it. The top gear costs as much as a down payment for a house.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about 10 grand. We're talking about 60 to 100 grand. We're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about lenses that are worth a quarter of $1 million,
Yeah.
like that's just not doable for the layperson. It's not doable for income, middle class America,
Yeah.
lower middle class America. And we want stories from all classes. We want stories from all people because that's what makes our society better. Specifically in America, we're such a melting pot that we want stories from everywhere. I mean, that's like the dream. I think that's the utopia is like
Yeah.
we can have stories from everywhere, then we're headed on the right path, right?
Oh, no, no, are you kidding me? Absolutely right. I mean, that's an incredible way of putting in so much amazing gear. Oh, and I wanted to bring something because I've read this about you. You used, and I want to hear a little bit about some of your work and your upcoming films and the ones that were just released, but you use vintage Japanese glass. Is that true on your last film? That sounds so cool because I'd love to hear now more about your working process, about your documentary that came out and films that you're working on before we have to get going and things that you're
Mhm.
working on, because what a unique aesthetic. I'm sure what you're creating is amazing here.
Yeah, I've used these lenses. They're called Kawa anamorphics. They're
Okay.
vintage Japanese glass. And they're one of my favorite sets of lenses I've ever used. I start out using them on a documentary called Freshwater with director Ian Planchon.
Okay.
That is about surfers in Lake Superior, and we love just the otherworldly quality of them, and they have like a very strong look built in. And for ChiefsAholic, Wolf and Chiefs Clothing, directed by Dylan Sires, produced by Christian Day, we all three had a conversation about how we want our recreations to look, and we specifically talked about the cow anamorphics for the built-in look, the sort of otherworldliness, this distorted sort of feel,
Sure.
being representative of Xaviar's world, specifically when he's robbing banks and his subsequent arrest. And their lenses have qualities to them, and these have
Right.
inherent, very strong qualities, which we wanted as a storytelling tactic. Um, and paired with a Steadicam operator named Lakota Leap, I think we made the right decisions for those and kind of giving people a perspective of Xavier's distorted world. Because really, I mean, if you're robbing banks to fund your NFL addiction, I think it's pretty distorted world and
Yeah.
distorted worldview, and so that we wanted to really kind of mimic that with that choice. And those lenses I've used a couple times. I just used them with another director, Chase Stein, on a
Okay.
western called In the Valley of the Devil. So they're really one of my favorite sets of glass.
Yeah.
The lenses have such a distinct mark on a project. Your choice of lens, I think, is the most important choice you can make as a cinematographer. All cameras can kind of get you to the same place,
Hmm.
but all lenses can't. Some have inherent qualities, some have, a built-in look that you want, and I think that's one of the most enjoyable parts of this part of my career is like when you get to a point where you can afford to like work with different lenses and
Yeah.
test. You really learn more about visual language in terms of like the greater cinematography sphere, which is, I mean, I think it opens up. It's more of those checkpoints. It opens these doors and gets you addicted even more to this.
No, yeah, absolutely. You kidding me? I'm 100% sure that's fantastic. I'm so glad you had opportunities like this to get out there. Now we can see a Wolf in Sheep's Clothing on Amazon right now. That's correct, right?
Yeah, so it premiered on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been on there for a while, but yeah, you can check it out on Amazon Prime right now. And really just a great project to work on with two people who I consider to be my friends and collaborators, Dylan Sires and Christian Day, directed by Dylan Sires, produced by Christian Day. Those two guys I've known for over a decade, and to be able to make a
Great.
project of this magnitude is it's been really special. And just want to shout out to the rest of the crew. Most of them were Iowa filmmakers, which was also really important to us.
Great.
Amazing camera crew, amazing Steadicam operator, and just amazing filmmakers from Kansas City, Tulsa, and Des Moines, Iowa. We couldn't have done it without them, and it was really a group effort. And I think we're all really proud of what we were able to accomplish, especially coming from a smaller market. Being given that opportunity wasn't something that fell lightly on our shoulders, and we really tried to carry it and do it justice as much as we could. And couldn't be more proud of the crew on this one, and just thankful for the opportunity to work with Dylan on that.
No, no, absolutely. And what a great representative you are, like you said, of your region, of where you are in the world. Because again, people now are, and you're a great example of that. There are so many amazing filmmakers, storytellers that are out there that are not living in, say, Hollywood, right? People just think people make movies in Hollywood. People are making movies all around the world now, all around the United States, all around the world. And because of this new digital age and the freedom and the lower cost point to get in, we have these amazing stories being created all over. I'm so glad you're utilizing that region that you're in to this great capability and bringing the work there and getting these people these opportunities. It's really fantastic to see that.
Yeah, I think I hope people remember that there's stories everywhere and that there's a rich history of storytelling everywhere you go. It's a human thing. It's not a Los Angeles thing. It's not a New York thing. It's a human thing, and we're all a part of it. And I think there's stories here that are just as important um, as stories that are being told in Vancouver or Atlanta or anywhere else in the world. So uh, I think once people start to see that the playing field really is level, I think maybe the storytelling, field will be a little bit more level too, and people will start to say, "Hey, what's going on in Iowa? What's going on in Kentucky? What's going on in these places that we don't really hear too much about?" Because I mean, these are, I hate to say it, but real people live everywhere,
100%.
and yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It's amazing to see what's happening out there now. And talking about what's happening out there now, I'm excited to see what's going on next for you. Any projects you're working on currently or upcoming projects in development? Can't wait to hear what's next.
Yeah, I'm in production right now for a feature length documentary with my good friend, director Spencer Smith, that's titled Old Time Hockey. And
Okay.
it's a documentary about a hockey tournament that takes place in Santa Rosa, California at Snoopy's Home Ice that was started by Peanuts creator Charles Scholes. And this hockey tournament is for hockey players 40 and older.
Okay,
So
look at
there's
that. Yeah.
40 division, 50 division, 60 division, 70 division, and 80 division. Last year, we filmed an 84-year-old former five-time Stanley Cup winner named Terry Harper, who's
Okay.
still playing hockey and playing hockey well.
That's
Some of
great.
these guys can skate faster than they can walk, but it's a story. It's a story of the love of the game and continuing sport past the age that people deem acceptable. It's about staying active. It's about having community as an aging person in America. It's about staying true to what you love as long as you can. The stories that we were capturing are heartwarming, sad, inspiring, and it's not just a documentary about old people playing hockey. It's a documentary about much more than that, and we feel very strongly about it. And we'll be finishing that up at the end of the year, and then have a couple other feature narrative projects in the works. Specifically, one feature film titled "Winters, Nebraska" that we're shooting in May of this year in Nebraska and Wyoming, which is a coming of age tale.
Oh,
Um, and I that's something that I am really, also invested in is this sort of idea of a coming of age tale, especially in the set in the Midwest. So, super happy to be working on something in the coast and getting into some California time, but then also, staying home in the Midwest and telling some stories.
no, no, that is amazing, Bruce. I have to say, you are a fascinating and inspiring individual. Really, you are. I can't believe we're coming up to 45 minutes already. Before we have to get going here, is there any? And again, you gave some incredible advice. I mean, you can almost create a quotes book on things you said throughout this entire conversation. I'd love to hear if you can just kind of summarize to our young listeners, people that want to take that kind of leap of faith like you did and pursue the arts like this, especially in your world of cinematography. Any advice that you would give in just a short form to say this is the way to kind of keep going or to get in?
Yeah, I think advice that I've really taken with me that's helped is, stay true to yourself, stay true to your passions. If you're ever feeling stuck, think about what really makes you happy. Think about what really makes you feel alive and go in that direction. Um, I think that you should believe in yourself more than anybody. I think that's key. I think there should be nobody on this planet that believes in you more than you do. And you can do it. You have already all the tools you need to do it. Storytelling is inherently a part of us as human beings. It's in our DNA.
Yep, yep.
Everybody does it on a daily basis. So you don't need to get anybody's permission to do it. You already are doing it. You do it on a daily basis. And, you know, I would also say don't be afraid of being vulnerable. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Because when you're vulnerable and you put yourself out there, you give other people permission to do that too. And that's something that's really beautiful about being a human being.
Bruce, thank you so much for coming on the show. You truly are the epitome of living your dreams. You really are an inspiration. I cannot wait for this episode to air so everybody can get your advice. Again, everybody can see the show on YouTube, Blossom TV, Red Coral, and of course, you can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Audible, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Bruce, thank you so much. We'll have links to all your social media and descriptions, your websites below, and all the different forms of social media. We'll make sure to promote you along the way because you are truly an inspiration. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I really appreciate it.